Good afternoon everyone. So today we're at a Seat. It's a Seat Ibiza Ecomotive 2011. So customer's complaint is exhaust light is on, but she says that usually comes on, gives it a shimmy down the motorway and it goes out after a long drive, so that usually works. So as I say, the hit's on, but there's also a code. It's a P00AF00 Foxtrot 00 TurboCharger SuperCharger boost control A module performance, and that's active static. So just go and let's have a look at the routing of this turbo. So this is a little diesel engine. I'm not sure the capacity of it. I'm actually not sure what the engine code is. I may get that for you. But anyway, here's the turbo up here. And what I believe, somebody's been at this before, and there's been the boost pressure control valves been changed. So that's just a potentiometer to show that the turbo's actually moving, right? But the person who's been at this car said they reckon it's something to do with this. So that just lets in a vacuum, pneumatic pressure, and I think that's going along to there. So I'll have a look at the routing of this thing. But another thing I need to check is the DPF. Why is that light on as well? Could that be stopping the signal? Don't know. I'm just looking at this thing along here. So the pipe work, it goes into there. It comes along, let me see. That goes along there. Then comes along the middle one here. Then it comes along here. It goes into the bottom one. No, the middle one goes into the middle one. So we'd assume that's complaining about the boost control. So it's looking like this little guy here. Oh, another solenoid. Oh dear. So let's put our vacuum gauge on this and see if we can move the turbo. But another thing, we need to check for power and grounds up here, because this guy does the actuation of the whole thing. So what we'll do, we'll go into the scan tool and let's go back. Let's read the data stream. And so we'll just type in turbo. Could be anything, but let's try that. So go OK, OK. Oh dear, disaster. Turbo. OK. So we have actuator position offset 0 degrees, actuation offset position -2, status, whatever that means. To do voltage, here we go, voltage. So you see that's moving just a little bit. So sensor raw voltage, so that'll be the potentiometer on top. And then this will be the actuator. Set let's here, and so I was wondering if the pipework's on the right position. So let's go back under, see if we've got a vacuum. We need to have a vacuum source going in. Back under. Let's leave the engine running. So my top pipe going into this valve has indeed got vacuum on it. So my finger is getting drawn in there. So that's good. And then I don't know what we know what the middle pipe goes to. I'll put that back in. So there's plenty of vacuum there. So we then just need to see if this one's getting drawn down in the middle. In fact, we could bridge that out and connect it. Let's try this for a laugh. The middle pipe here indeed does go to the turbo actuator at the back. And if you look at my scan data, I've not got my vacuum pump, but I've got a better vacuum pump. It's called my mouth. So I'll draw that down and you watch this figure. And I let it go, so that's working. So everything's pointing to that guy there. Wiring diagram and all data, and you can see that's the charge pressure control valve, the N75 valve. Now there's only 2 wires going to this. And you can see one's the brown wire, I think brown yellow, it goes to the ECU on pin 60. And that grounds it out to make the valve actuate, to make the solenoid open or actuate to pass vacuum. And then the other wire at the bottom is that blue wire, and that's the 12 volt power supply. So in the next video clip, I put my test light in there, which is a 1 amp, and that proves that I've got a good supply. But when I go to the other side, I try to ground that, which should open that valve or actuate that valve, and it does not work. So I'm beginning to wonder, is it a vacuum issue? It's light here. So you can see on the blue wire, I've got power, right? So if I go into the other side, I should be able to command that valve. See, it's lighting a little bit. I should be able to command that valve to pull down that to actuate the turbo. So let's look at the scan tool. So look at the voltage there, 3.87. So if I then put this in there, it lights up and there's no actuation. So bearing in mind, we're hoping that this tubing's the right way. We're condemning that guy there because he is. So let's try that. So I stuck this new one in it, right? But I'm not sure. I've reversed these pipes and that's drawn it down to a low voltage. So I'm going to reverse these two again because that small one definitely goes there. And that's routed up to here. So that must be for fumes. I don't know, for something. So it's these two. I don't know if they're in the right position. So let's switch them and see how we go on with that. So with me switching the pipe work, you can see our voltage just remains the same. So let's shimmy her down the road and see if that makes any difference. Something bizarre here. So with me switching the pipe work, I've given it the revs, given it the trying to get boost, and that's no moving. So I begin to wonder if it is this light is blocking it. So let's look at these values. So giving this a rev, right, we're at 140 hectopascals, so let's do a conversion and see what that's like. So that's on the limit, that's 2 psi, so I think we need to attack that first and then maybe we'll find out why it's no boosting. So we're going to try and see if we can get rid of this light. So we'll do reset learn values of particle filter. So we'll just leave the key on, so we'll go for this one. So OK, not running, so adjust, out of range, that doesn't work, so we'll stop that. Let's muck about with this. I should have looked at this earlier on. You can see this is a 1.2 TDI, engine code C00AF00. Alright, so go into that, so read DTCs again. So it's interesting to see if this code's returned. So it's still back, TurboCharger, SuperCharger, boost control, performance. So let's go back there since we've got a new valve on it. Right everyone, so this is another day. I never had much time yesterday, so I went away and thought about it. So here's my next test. I want to find out whether this valve's getting actuated. Now I looked on the scan tool last night, and indeed from the scan tool it said it was getting actuated, so I just wanted to check. So I've got my scope on it, so I've got my earth lead to battery negative, and then I'm going for that brown wire there, and then I should be looking for a duty cycle on this wire. So 12 volts in there, then a duty cycle on this. And if I've got a duty cycle in there, that proves it's all good from that computer there to here. So it's no blocking the signal or anything, even due to the DPF light being on. It has to be something in here, it has to be mechanical or pneumatic. So let's go and look at the scope. So there's the scope set up. I'm actually using the green channel, channel 2. So we'll switch on the ignition. So there you go, look, we've got full actuation in that valve, so it's 0 to 12 volts. Let me see, let's reset the values. So you can see that's 0 to, so that's 13 volts, and I've got my glasses. So start the car up. So there we go, that's its default, that's it not getting actuated, right? When I rev it, see, it's trying to actuate that valve. That's me revving it constantly. So that's that valve trying to get actuated. So I think it knows now there's a fault. And that's why it's doing that. So let's go and look at the pneumatic side again, because I think that's pretty good. That proves that I've got 12 volts going through the coil, coming out the other side. And that is well, it's only getting grounded a little bit there, but if I rev it again, that's it grounding it now. That's it pulling the 12 volts to ground. So that valve's good. So the next test I'm going to do is oh, you like it? I bought a new vacuum gauge. £20. So I've got that vacuum gauge ported in to the bit that actuates the turbo. See the middle bit? I'm into the middle pin. Sorry, the middle port. And that comes out, tees into my gauge so it's in line, and that goes to the turbo. And I'm going to see what the readings are like when I rev this, just sitting here on the side of the road. So let's bring it into the car. So there's the vacuum gauge along with the scope. This should tell us all. So let's start the car up. So look, we've got a little vacuum. So that's drawn down. Just a little bit. We've got a supply issue. I think it should draw down more than that. But it is drawing down. So let's switch it off. There she goes back up. You think that'd be enough to get this going? So there we go, I've got it set up again, so let's put key on. See, we've got actuation of the valve. Well, it's not been grounded yet. You can see it's staying relatively high. Just when it goes the other way, that's when it goes down. So I'll keep you focused on the two items. So start her up. Right. So she's pulled 10 inches. Where is she? 10 inches of mercury. A vacuum. So that should be moving my turbo. So the question is that enough vacuum to move this turbo? See that? So let's get a scan tool on it again. You were right, there'd be enough vacuum there to move it somewhat. So I've went and finally scanned it, and you see the P00AF00 codes came back. Well, it was never there in the first place, so it is actually showing a restriction, so we agree with that. But we still have the TurboCharger SuperCharger. So let's go in and look at the data again, and I'll show you this actuation of the turbo. If I type in turbo, so you can see it. You can see the figures there. So if I rev that, you can actually see the actuator. That's still not moving very much. It's moving a wee bit, right enough. It's not getting enough vacuum. But see, look, when I press this one, see this actuator position offset. Watch this. Foot to the floor, it goes to 90%. So we're at 4% now, and we agree with that. So then when we hit 94%, and then I'll let you see the scope, foot to the floor. So that's doing that. But still, we haven't hardly any movement in the raw sensor voltage. I mean, that's enough to give that more vacuum. I wonder how much vacuum I actually have. Let's go and check the source of the vacuum again. So that's me ported back in again to the source of the vacuum, which is the top pipe. You can see I've put the middle pipe and the bottom pipes back on. So let's go and see how much vacuum coming through this thing. So I'll start the car and keep you focused on the vacuum gauge. It's a good vacuum pump. I've seen them anywhere from 20 to 30. I've seen that in a Vauxhall once. 30 inches of vacuum, 30 inch of mercury. Is that not an absolute vacuum? So watch this as I start it. Oh, that's a good vacuum pump. There we go. 25 inches of mercury. So we are looking here at a leak somewhere. I wonder if it's off that third channel. Let's see if it holds its vacuum with a switch off. Well, there you go. We're almost about 30 inches. And it's holding vacuum. Nothing wrong with that pump or the supply. So what I've done this time, as you see the little bit at the bottom, I've blanked that off to see if we can build up more vacuum. So let's try that this time and see if that maybe works. Maybe too much leakage in that pipe to wherever that goes to. So that's my setup. I blanked off that bottom one. So watch this figure down here, 3.91. With that one blanked off, let's see if this changes anything. Well, it's took it right down to it's fully open. So that needs a leak in there somewhere, because so even with my scope, so there's my scope, it's not fully grounded out. So the scope's trying to release it. It knows there's something wrong. So that needs a leak down there, but we must have too much of a leak. So even when I switch it off, it holds onto the vacuum. Oh, so a restriction in there somehow. Wonder what that wee pipe controls. So I'm following this little pipe, the one down the bottom. So I just thought I'd look at it. I'm not sure if this is it yet, but here's hoping. So we follow it along. Oops, sorry. There it's here. Look at this. Oh, is that an air leak? So let's put our vacuum gauge on that and draw that down. I think that's a hole in it. Let's see, I put the light on it. Kind of looks like it, eh? So I put my vacuum gauge on it, and as I draw that down, you think there should be some resistance in that, but I have nothing. So I'll clamp the pipe somehow and then show you it again. So I can draw that down if I clip the pipe beyond my suspect bit. If I do that, that holds vacuum, so that bit is not the problem. So it has to be in there, wherever this goes to. This thing up here has to be the problem. So I've put that connector back onto the bottom, but I've put a little hole in it. So let's see if that works. Bleed off a little, because I've tried. That pipe seems good, and when I pinch it there and put vacuum on it, it's good. So I wonder if it's in this thing here. Right, just to test my theory, I've rigged up from the bottom bit and I put it through a little restrictor to see if that just lets enough out, but lets the air bleed off. So let's try that, see what our voltage is. I've got my little restriction on, so you can see that our voltage at 3.91. So let's start her up. So you can see she's building. Do I want that right now? About my actuators, it's too low. We're on the right track, but that's not going to do the job. I think the voltage is too low. Let's see the code. Well, it's not came back yet right enough. Read DTC. So that's still there. Maybe we should clear that code first. Let's clean this DPF, then order up that part. Got the trusty snap-on tool out, so what I'm going to do is to get rid of that light, go replace DPF. Right. The function will clear the particular learned values. The function is used when a new particular filter has been used. Do not use the function if the filter has not been replaced. Okay. Well, you see it got rid of the light. Well, I can't clear that, so Let's just go abort. Okay. Let's start her up. The light's going. So let's see what codes we have. So let's clear these codes. So we're all good. So let's give her a run, see what she's like. Right, good news, she's going better. The turbo's kicking in now. So still need to, that meter leak's working. So you can see we've got no codes. If we go back to our data, oh dear, this is in groups. Right, I switched back to the top down, snap on, far too slow. So anyway, I've switched now to charge pressure. How much pressure's in the intake manifold. So you can see key on engine off, we're at 1.6, 980 hectopascals. And so its actual value is 980 and what it's looking for is 980. Sorry, you cannot graph this one. So let's start her up. Now I'm still working about with this Dodge. Right. So we've not got anything in the intake manifold at the moment. So we'll just sit and rev it here. So what it's looking for is getting, and actually maybe a wee bit more. So we'll drive it down the road and I'll let you keep an eye on the data. This is hard. So you can see that we're getting boost. Sorry, I should have kept you. I'll do that again. I'll put you at second gear. Keep your eye on the bottom one. So as that goes up, we're getting boost. So the turbo's okay. So we need to phone the main dealer and get that bit, whatever it is. So we are boosting. Let's see if any codes have came back. I'd imagine that boost one because it's not quite the right bleed. So hits came back, so need to phone the main dealer. Right, I've took this pipe off and I'm looking in here. I don't know, it's hard to see and sorry about this, but if I put my hand in there and I feel about it, that's just an open hole. So is that meant to have a little diaphragm in there or something like that? There's absolutely nothing there, so where's the restriction meant to be about? This is my question. Because the other valve was exactly the same as that one, so anyway, he's going to phone the main dealer. I'll let you know. If it's a thumbs up at the end of the video, it's all sorted. Right, we've put another aftermarket N75 valve on it. So I think the N75 valve is actually the restriction. So see if I read the DTCs. I'm now getting a P00AF00 TurboCharger SuperCharger under boost. So that was with another aftermarket N75 valve. So I think we need to go to the main dealer and get a proper N75 valve because they cannot all be the same. So let's try that because that is no working. So I'll let you know. Right, brand new N75 valve installed from the main dealers, and we're still getting codes. So this is with the new valve installed. We have a P00AF00 and a P29900. So let's clear it and see if we can adapt this valve in. So leave the key on, so clear DTCs. Right, that's them going. So I think if we go to basic settings, adaption, let's maybe do, let's look through the rest. Exhaust, nut, particle, resetting off-learn values of TurboCharger, test charge air pressure control. So you imagine it's a TurboCharger. So let me look through these first. So I'm doing test of charge air pressure and I've hit, it says stop it, but if I go stop, adjust, I thought I could hear the turbo spooling up. So stop that, come out of that. So let's do resetting of learned values of turbochargers. I wouldn't think it'd be that. Test of charge air pressure control. Alright, my man. So it's still no right. So I went into this data list here, so I'm looking for things to do with this. So it says learn values of solenoid valve closing time. So pick this. I don't know what it does. Here we go. Oh, so I don't know what it is. So I think we'll come back out of that. So we'll go back into adaptation of turbocharger. Okay. So adjust it. So we'll adjust that again. Stop it. Adjust. We need to stop that. Go back out it. Back into it. Now, to cut a long story short, I'm going to tell you what was wrong with this. The vacuum pipes into the N75 valve were round the wrong way. So the way it should be, the top one should go to the vent, the middle one was correct, it goes to the turbo, but the bottom one is the vacuum supply. So as you could see when I was looking at that, the bottom one was a small diameter and the other two were thicker. So someone has obviously changed the plumbing further up the line. So that which caused all the confusion. So it was actually my mate Dave says, go and look at that diagram, you big dafty. I spent about 2 or 3 days at this car. So there we go. Always remember, top vent, middle is turbo actuation, and the bottom one is the vacuum supply coming from the pump. So that cured the problem. Anyway, lesson learned. Cheers.